Today, we are diving deep into a core idea from Google's Site Reliability Engineering Playbook, the 4 golden signals. We're going to talk about why that high CPU alert is probably a waste of your time, and what you should be watching instead to actually keep your users happy.
Okay, let's just jump right into a situation that I guarantee every single one of us has been in. An alert fires. Some server's CPU is pegged at 90%. What's your gut reaction? Panic, right? Time to wake somebody up, escalate the issue, scramble to figure out what's going on. But just hold on a second. What does a busy CPU really tell us about what our users are actually experiencing?
And the answer, which might actually surprise you, is not much. It really doesn't tell you nearly enough. A machine can be working its tail off, running at 90 or even 100%, and be serving users just fine. That alert is about a cause. It's a low-level machine detail. What we really care about, what we should care about, are the symptoms, the things that directly mess with your user's day.
This right here represents a huge shift in thinking. On the left, you've got cause-based alerting. That's the old way. It's noisy, it burns out your on-call engineers, and it pages you for things that might not even be real problems. But on the right, that's symptom-based alerting. This is the SRE way. It focuses directly on the user experience. Is the service slow? Is it failing? This approach means fewer alerts, but the ones you get are the ones that really, really matter.
And look, this isn't just some nice idea. It's a foundational principle from the team that literally wrote the book on site reliability engineering. Google's SREs took all this wisdom and boiled it down into a super clear, really powerful framework they call the 4 golden signals. And here they are: latency, traffic, errors, and saturation. You should think of these as the vital signs for your service's health. They answer the 4 most critical questions, and right now, we're going to break down exactly what each one means. Let's start with the one users feel the most. All right, let's get into our first signal, latency. You could honestly call this one the speed of happiness, because it's the one your users are going to notice first, every time. So, at its core, latency is just how long it takes to handle a request. Simple enough. But there is a really critical detail here that you can't miss. You absolutely have to separate the latency of your successful requests from your failed ones. Why? Well, think about it. An error can come back almost instantly. If you lump those fast fails in with your slow successes, you could be hiding a major slowdown and not even know it. And this highlights another huge trap. Looking at average latency. The average can look totally fine while a small group of your users are having an absolutely miserable experience. So instead, you need to focus on percentiles, specifically the 99th percentile, or P99. This number tells you about the experience of your slowest, most frustrated 1% of users. If your P99 latency is high, you know for a fact you have a problem that the average would completely hide. So now that we understand speed, let's bring in some context with our second golden signal, traffic. This one is all about understanding the actual demand being placed on your service. You know, traffic is the context for everything else. It's the baseline. It could be requests per second or transactions per minute, whatever makes sense for your system. Looking at your other signals without knowing the traffic is like trying to diagnose a patient without taking their pulse. If your errors are spiking while traffic is going through the roof, you've probably got a scaling problem. But if errors spike while traffic is completely normal, that's a huge clue that you're probably dealing with a bug from a recent deployment. Moving right along to our third signal. This one is all about counting what's broken, but more importantly, counting it the right way. Let's talk about errors. Just like with latency, the details here are everything. A raw count of, say, 100 errors is meaningless. Is that 100 errors out of 1,000 requests, or is it 100 out of 1,000,000? The key thing to remember is that you have to measure the error rate as a percentage of your total traffic. And you should focus on the errors that are actually your fault. Server-side stuff like HTTP 500s, not client-side things like 404s that you can't control. Now, tracking your error rate properly unlocks one of the most powerful concepts in all of SRE, the error budget. This whole idea comes from your service level objective, or SLO, which is basically just the promise you make to your users about how reliable your service is going to be. Your error budget then tells you exactly how much unreliability you're allowed to have before you break that promise. So for example, if you have a 3 nines or 99.9% availability SLO, that gives you a 0.1% error budget. And this isn't just a number on a chart. It's a tool for making real engineering decisions. If you have plenty of budget left, go ahead, ship new features. But if you've burned through your budget for the month, Well, all new feature work stops and everybody's focus shifts to making the service more reliable. It's that simple.
And that brings us to our final and maybe the most powerful signal of them all, saturation. You should think of this one as your early warning system, your crystal ball.
I mean, this is the million-dollar question for every single engineer, right? We're all pretty good at reacting to outages after they happen, but how do we get ahead of them? How can we see them coming?
Well, this is where saturation becomes your best friend. Remember how we started this whole thing talking about that 90% CPU alert? That's utilization. It just tells you how busy a resource is. Saturation is different. It measures how much that resource has become a bottleneck. The real sign of trouble isn't a busy CPU, it's a long line of things waiting for that CPU. A queue means work isn't getting done. It's a leading indicator, telling you that performance is about to tank, and it gives you time to act before the outage actually hits.
Okay, so we've covered all 4 signals, but the real magic, the real power, is when you put them all together on one dashboard. Let's walk through a real-world incident and see how these signals can take you from total chaos to a clear diagnosis in just a few seconds. All right, so the alert comes in, the payment service is slow. Instead of just randomly SSHing into servers, our on-call engineer has a playbook. And the first step is always the same. Pull up the 4 golden signals dashboard for that service.
And here's what they see. On the dashboard, latency, that yellow line is spiking like crazy. It's going through the roof. But then they look at the green line, traffic, and it's flat. It is completely normal. So what does that tell us right off the bat?
It tells us immediately that the problem has nothing to do with load. This isn't some marketing campaign gone viral or a DDoS attack. This is an internal bottleneck. And with that one piece of information, we can form a really specific hypothesis. We're probably seeing saturation in some constrained resource downstream, like the database running out of available connections. Just like that, we've gone from a vague "it's slow" to a highly probable root cause in seconds.
So let's boil all this down. What are the key takeaways? First, stop monitoring machine-level causes like CPU and start monitoring user-facing symptoms like slowdowns and failures. Second, use P99 latency and the error rate as your direct measurement of user happiness. And finally, use saturation as your early warning system to get ahead of problems before they become full-blown outages. And that leaves us with one final question for you to take back to your own teams. Now that you have this framework, I want you to go take a hard look at your current alerting dashboards. How many of those alerts are just noise? And how many are truly telling you that your users are having a bad day? Thanks for joining me.